If you're not doing annual maintenance, you're going to be putting people's health and wellness at risk. Having real estate is a lot like having kids, right? You have to take care of it. You have to put the time in and make the investment to take care of your real estate. The problem is, if there is a fire at either one of those units and the alarm doesn't go off and somebody passes away, unfortunately, which happens all the time, the lawsuit is almost indefensible. The power of real estate is time. Time is your friend. And as Larry Akins is fond of saying, a bad real estate deal is like a bad haircut. Just give it a little bit of time.
In my real estate journey, I meet some pretty amazing folks. And recently I met a person who is not only a Silicon Valley real estate mogul and attorney of 20 years, but also the startup founder of one of the fastest growing companies in the US. He's the founder of HomeSmiles, a company that could possibly save you lots of money and from possible dangerous injury, time and hassle, and improve the value of your home in more ways that you can think. Now, he's changed my views of how to manage my own home and gave me solutions, problems that have been brewing at the back of my head. So I want to share this podcast with you to ask him a whole bunch of questions. I promise you, the story is very, very interesting. Hi Jess, thanks for joining us today. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Really very excited to have you.
Charlie, it's a pleasure to be here. I've loved interacting with you and spending time with you this afternoon. It's a highlight of my day, so I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
As I mentioned in the little introduction that I gave earlier, you're one of the most amazing people I've seen in real estate so far. Just so that I didn't want to tell your story. I was hoping you can tell us a little bit about your story, your founder story. How did you come up with HomeSmiles? And HomeSmiles is now no longer just a small little company. It's got last week I think it's 58 franchisees. It might have increased a little bit. But please tell us a little bit about HomeSmiles and how you came up with this.
Sure, happy to do it. As you know, I'm a 20 plus year real estate attorney. Before that, my wife referred to me as a real estate orphan. My father was a developer. My mother was a very successful real estate broker, top 5 NAR tracked nationally, phenomenal real estate agent. And so I grew up literally at the table, hearing about my mother talking about deals and my father talking about deals. And I was literally weaned, if you will, on real estate. And from the very beginning, I have always loved real estate. So, I love real estate. I live, breathe, eat, drink, sleep real estate 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, always have. So along with that, for those of us that are real estate investors or have owned real estate for a period of time, or if you haven't and you're new and you're just joining the podcast, having real estate is a lot like having kids, right? You have to take care of it. You have to put the time in and make the investment to take care of your real estate. The age-old adage, take care of your properties today and they will take care of you tomorrow, is incredibly true. And so as time went on, in order to really understand the birth of HomeSmiles and the origin story of HomeSmiles, you have to picture a real estate investor who's also an attorney. And so what was happening is I had all this real estate that I needed to take care of. And the downside, if you don't take care of your real estate, you're going to have all kinds of problems. You're going to have liability concerns. You're going to spend a lot of money on deferred maintenance that you otherwise shouldn't have to. Your energy bills are going to skyrocket. And you're also going to be putting people at risk if you're managing rental properties. If you're not doing annual maintenance, you're going to be putting people's health and wellness at risk. And that I could not live with. On the second hand, also I'm an attorney. So I was the chair of the real estate department for a phenomenal firm here in California, which shall remain nameless. But I was with them for 20 years, loved my career with them. And along with that chair, I had to keep an eye on the evolution of lawsuits and liability and litigation across the United States. And what I saw was a constant escalation in liability against property managers, property owners, rental property owners, real estate agents, anybody involved with real estate. A question I get a lot is, why is that? And the reason for that is primarily because along with real estate goes insurance. And insurance is a big target for any form of plaintiff's litigation. So the litigation started to go up. And so to just give you an example, here in California, if you own a rental property, or if you manage a rental property for somebody else, and there you haven't cleaned the dryer vent in an extended period of time, and there is a fire and somebody dies, which would be terribly unfortunate, that's a $20+ million piece of litigation. And so that's just an example. The same thing goes for smoke alarms and carbon alarms and slip and falls in garages. I could go on and on. But if you're not taking care of this liability, you're going to have problems. So when you put both of those pieces together in a bowl of soup, what was born was Home Smiles. I got to the point where I could no longer sleep. We had a lot of real estate that we were managing, hundreds of doors here in the Bay Area. And I also had this attorney hat on where I was very concerned about liability. So Home Smiles was born, if you will, out of that bowl of soup. And the premise was to create a one-call, one-click, single-source solution to take care of all of your property management in one single service call. And so as we talk more, we can talk about what those service options are and how we package them and how we present them. But that is the origin story of Home Smiles in a nutshell.
I have a question for you. So if I'm not a real estate mogul like you, if I'm a homeowner, just a regular homeowner, do I need your services? Can I afford your services?
Great question. So when Home Smiles was started, it was started to serve, if you will, the property management market. What we very quickly found was that the product appealed to the B2C market, the business to consumer market as well, which is why we're now in over 30 states with, I think we're 85 locations sold, hundreds of territories. And the reason for that is because everybody's home needs maintenance on an annual basis. Most people are familiar with a couple of things, right? They're familiar with, I got to clean my roof, I got to clean my gutters, I've got to change my furnace filter, I need to check my carbon and smoke alarms. Most people know that they should be cleaning their dryer vent annually to prevent fires. But that's really the main 5 or 6 that people think about when they think about doing maintenance on their home. You also then have beautification things or curb appeal projects, right, Charlie? Such as, hey, I want to have my driveway and my front porch pressure washed, or I want to have my whole home pressure washed, or I want to have my windows cleaned. So the idea was to create a service where we could do all of that in a single visit solution, a single source solution. And so we've got some slides here. I can go through them here quickly that touch upon, for example, energy costs. We have found that performing a Home Smiles service on your home, if you think about it, all of the appliances in your home, especially here in California and or high energy use states or high energy cost states, just cleaning your dryer vent and regular furnace filter changes, water heater flush, refrigerator coil cleaning, some of the things we do in our single complete home care service, that will pay for the cost of the service itself. So does your regular everyday homeowner need these things done on their home? Absolutely they do. And as you and I have talked about, that's really how we've positioned ourselves in the industry, that a lot of people will call, they just want their gutters cleaned. And we'll go out there and we'll see kids' bikes in the driveway. And we'll say, hey, Mr. or Mrs. Homeowner, have you had your dryer vent cleaned recently? Because if not, it could be a fire hazard. And while we're cleaning their gutters, they'll look on YouTube and they'll see, hey, this is a problem and I want to keep my kids safe. And so they'll get their dryer vent cleaned as well. But they look at us then as the expert in the industry, helping guide them and advise them on how to keep their home healthy and safe for their family. In the same respect, these are some of the hidden home dangers that people they're not even aware of. The national smoke alarm failure rate, over 50%, almost the same for the national carbon alarm failure rate. This is the most recent data I've seen is over 3,300 homes in the last year. This one says 2,900. And deaths from dryer vent fires. And then the garage door, that's a crazy one. I didn't realize this until I got involved in this with Home Smiles, that your garage door is the largest appliance in your house. And it's the number one reason where people get hurt in their home. And then what Home Smiles does is we basically take the average individual vendor costs that you would pay for these services if you bought them one-off, over almost $2,000 here in California in the Bay Area, and we bundle them into a single service call. We do them for less than $600. And so that's how we come to bring our expertise, our time savings to bear in the market in order to help people take care of their homes and take care of their properties.
Jess, this is $600 a month or a year?
It's once a year. What I like to say to people when they ask me, I'm not in the sales center anymore. But what I used to say to people is, Charlie, if you're doing a Home Smile service on your home once a year, you're ahead of 95% of the country. You're totally fine. You don't need to have your gutters cleaned multiple times a year. We have clients, they want that, and that's fine, we'll do it. But you don't have to clean your dryer vent multiple times a year. You don't have to clean your furnace filter multiple times a year. You can if you want to, and some people want to do more. But if you're just doing this single bundled service once a year, you're fine. You're absolutely fine. And in fact, you're ahead of where you should be.
So how long will it take to go through this list?
Great question. How long does it take to go through the list? This is where Home Smiles really brings its market expertise to bear. So instead of, and I'll give you a couple of examples, but there are many more. Instead of cleaning gutters by hand, which is how it's historically been done, is a company will come out and they'll have two guys or gals marching around the house on ladders, and they're scooping it out with scoops and putting it into a bag. We invest in very, very high-end vacuums. And we clean the gutters with vacuums. We call them Smile Vacs. So the Smile Vacs will clean gutters on the house in about 20 to 30% of the time that it takes to do traditional standard gutter cleaning. For window cleaning, for example, the window cleaning, generally what you're used to, window cleaning incredibly expensive. For those people who are watching the show that have had their windows cleaned on their home, they know how expensive it is. We can generally undercut window cleaning by almost 50%, and the reason why is this. We invest in high-end deionized window cleaning machines that our vans are outfitted with. They're highly, highly filtrated. Deionization is difficult to explain in the context of a podcast because it would take a while. But the way that I like to explain it is, think of like magnetized water. So that the minute the water goes over the window pane, it sucks all the dirt right off the window pane. It was invented by the automotive industry in order to keep hundreds or thousands of cars clean on auto lots without actually having to clean them. And so we can do windows again in about 20 to 30% of the time that a traditional window cleaning company would charge. The other benefit of using a deionized window cleaning machine is, instead of just cleaning the window pane, which is what most companies do, we clean the frame, the mullions, the panes, and the window sill itself. It's a far superior product, a far superior service, and we can do it in 20 to 30% of the time. So when you take those two things, plus the way that we do pressure washing and dryer vent cleaning, which is using tooling that the majority of the industry does not use, we can do those services in 20 to 30% of the time. That allows us to dedicate the remainder of the time to the additional 14 services that we provide on our complete home care package, which is why you can't beat it with a stick. If you bundled all this stuff up together like we looked at before, it'd be almost $2,000 if you just went out to the open market in order to have them done by single source providers.
In your experience, which one of these areas is the most neglected in terms of home maintenance in Silicon Valley?
I would say, as far as this, my concern is really the safety items, Charlie. When people talk about neglect, I mean, if you don't care about being able to look out your bay windows and see, our beautiful Bay Area from, the Santa Cruz Mountains, if you don't care about that, your windows are dirty, so what? Not a problem. But if you don't clean your dryer vent, as I mentioned before, over 3,000 homes burned to the ground last year. And yeah, we're not talking about hundreds of deaths, but you are talking about some. And the other problem is this family's memories. This is all of their photos. This is mementos. This is their home, and it's gone. So I would say dryer vent cleaning is the most often neglected because a lot of people simply don't understand it. So our technicians make a point of it, especially when they see any type of, kids, big wheels in the driveway or a sandbox in the backyard. They will point out to the homeowner, hey, have you had your dryer vent cleaned? Because we're here to help you. We're here to provide our industry expertise to help keep you and your family safe. And the reality is a lot of people don't even understand. They will say, oh no, I clean the dryer vent every time I do it. I pull the little trap out and I clean it. And we say, hey, time out. That's the lint trap. The dryer vent is out here on the outside of the house. And they'll see that and go, because normally they'll kind of pull open their phone and they'll Google it. They just want to make sure we're not upselling them something that they don't need. And they watch those videos and they go, yes, please clean it while you're here. So that would be my main one. After that, I would say carbon and smoke alarms. Carbon and smoke alarms are a huge, huge problem. That slide that we just went over showed nearly 50% of carbon and smoke alarms nationally do not work. And that comes from the National Fire Council report, right? And that's a huge problem. And the reason why is most people think that if they just hit that little test button and it goes beep, that it's functional. It's not. That's an interrupter button simply to show that your battery is charged. What happens is the plate that's inside of the unit gets oxidized. And depending upon where you live, the closer you live to the ocean, the closer you live to certain types of climates, the faster it'll oxidize. So here in California, for example, this has been such a problem that about 5 years ago, a law was passed. It says if you are managing a property for a rental property owner, or if you are a rental property owner and you are renting out the house, you have to every year go out and check, visually inspect, number one, that the required carbon and smokes are in place. Number two, you have to test them. And for functionality, number three, you have to log the findings of your test in a report. Failure to do so, if you get caught not doing it, is $100 per unit, which doesn't seem like the end of the world if you only have a duplex. We're talking maybe 3 carbons or 6 carbons or 2 carbons and 6 smoke alarms. But the problem is, if there is a unit, if there is a fire at either one of those units and the alarm doesn't go off and somebody passes away, unfortunately, which happens all the time, the lawsuit is almost indefensible. The plaintiff's attorney is going to bring in a fire expert or a health expert, and they're going to say, but for the landlord or the property manager's failure to check this as required by law, could lives have been saved? And the expert's going to say, absolutely. And then it just goes to the jury, and it's a very, very high reward. So that's what has a lot of property management companies concerned today, is making sure that those things are taken care of. So that's part of the service that we provide. If I had a young real estate investor here across from me and said, hey, I want to buy and own a lot of rental property like you do, I would say, first and foremost, be cognizant of the fact that this is not a get-rich-quick scheme. If you want to get rich quick in real estate, it is possible, it is doable, but the higher the reward, the higher the risk. Me personally, I am a tortoise beats the hare every day of the week and twice on Tuesday. And so a lot of the age-old adages of, first and foremost, buy right, manage well, sell right. I endeavor not to sell anything ever. If once I buy it and I buy it right, and we do a value add to it or whatever we are doing to reposition that product, or maybe we just bought the product as is and we like it, I'm literally forgetting about it. I'm handing it over to the management company. I'm going to check in on it on a monthly basis, but I'm not thinking about it for any reason other than to build that portfolio. So, but I would say probably the most important piece of advice I would share with any young and or aspiring real estate investor is to surround yourself with people who have done what you want to do. Find people who live, breathe, eat, drink, sleep real estate 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, who love real estate, and get close to them. And that might be a real estate agent, a broker, a mortgage broker, a contractor, another investor, but be close to them and talk to them on a regular basis. You're going to have trials and tribulations, and you're going to need people to guide you, first and foremost, talk you off a ledge and or give you a pat on the back. But you're also going to need people that can help steer you through the woods because you've never been through the woods before. So surround yourself with experienced real estate investors. That would be number one. Number two would be get a great education when it comes to real estate. Now, I went to law school and business school for one reason and one reason only, to become the best real estate investor I possibly could. And it held me in very good stead. That doesn't mean I haven't made mistakes. I absolutely have.
But it's quite, it's not exactly the most conventional path when you go to law school and say, I want to do conveyancing, my choice of area of expertise. I want to go to real estate law as opposed to a whole bunch of other people who want to, other lawyers want to become an IP lawyer and a litigator, a whole bunch of different kinds of lawyers. And wow, this is very, very strange to want to go into law and to become a real estate person. How do you even figure that?
Well, again, you got to go back to my mother was a real estate broker. My father was a real estate developer, right?
So you had the pedigree there.
Yeah, that and the apple doesn't fall too far from the tree. I had great professors in law school. So in order to pass the California bar, to take the California bar, in order to graduate from law school in California, I think it's still required. Things have changed a little bit in the last 30 years since I went to law school, but back then you had to take a real estate course, generally real estate 2 as well. So, I will put it to you this way. It's not the sexiest area of the law, but the reality is that real estate surrounds us everywhere. It's where we work. It's where we sleep. It's where we entertain. It's where we eat. It's every footfall we take falls upon land generally that somebody owns and or somebody controls. And so it's, even though it might not have the panache that being an IP litigator has or a patent attorney, it's a great area of the law. I loved practicing real estate law, from day one. And so going back to the education component, to be a real estate investor, you don't need a law degree and you don't need a business degree by any stretch of the imagination. But when I talk about education, what I mean is make sure that you are constantly going to conferences, constantly going to symposiums, constantly reading books, constantly listening to podcasts. Find a couple of very highly experienced real estate investors that, the Robert Kiyosakis, the David Lindalls, I mean, I could go on and on of the world who were people that I followed and what they did, because I was basically following their path, even though I was 10, 20 years behind them. But it's at the end of the day, it's the concepts, it's the morals, that you hold true that are going to guide you and keep you on path. Don't overextend yourself, right? Be patient. Be patient. You're going to have up markets and you're going to have down markets. That's just part of the deal. But one of my favorite stories I ever heard when it came to real estate investing was somebody said to me, Jess, have you ever been to a cocktail party or a Christmas party or any type of event and had some 75, 80-year-old real estate investor come up to you and put their arm around you and say, Jess, I hear you're buying real estate, and I just wanted to share this with you before I left the party. And that is, as I look back now, I wish I'd never bought all that real estate. Nobody ever says that, right? Because
nobody ever says that.
Right. Over time, you're going to be in great shape. Probably my closest mentor is the founder of Terrace Realty here in San Mateo County. His name is Larry Akins, and I talk to him every week, and the man's almost like a father to me. But everything that I'm going to see, he's already seen it. Everything I'm going to do, he's already done it. And I reach out to him and I ask him for guidance. I ask him for counsel. And that's the type of relationship that, in my opinion, you need to have if you want to have long-term success as a real estate investor.
I'm definitely going to call you a lot more for coffee. Yeah.
I love coffee. My phone's always on, Charlie.
Now that the elections is just over, and we know where Proposition 33 will land, any thoughts on that?
Charlie, to be honest with you, I haven't even looked. What did it say? What are the results saying?
They said no to proposition to repeal a proposition to repeal the rent control. So no rent control. Yay!
Well, no, that's great. The vote was trending that way, and I was sincerely hoping that you were going to say that. I personally, we already have statewide rent control at 10%, right? And so you're basically looking at 5% plus CPI, which is fine. And in my opinion, that is more than adequate. That is more than adequate. Because, and I don't mean to go off on a tangent here, I really don't. But
go, please.
Everybody thinks that landlords just sit on a beach in Hawaii and work for the mailman. It's not the case. During the 2008 and 2009 subprime crisis, rents fell precipitously in California. During the COVID pandemic, rents fell precipitously in California. And the reality is that, to me, if I'm going to be a landlord, I have to be willing to accept the good, i.e., rents are going up. That's why we got in this business. As well as the bad, rents are going down, and I have to be prepared for that. I have to have a war chest. I have to be ready to get through that. So to me, a 10% cap, 5% plus CPI is more than fair. And really, the tenant representative organizations that were advocating for more, in my opinion, were being extremely greedy. Also, I understand having rent control apply to, the large property management companies of the world, PMs that have, and or investors that have hundreds of units. Okay, I understand that. But having rent control apply to your single family home, if you want to take a year off and travel around Europe, right? Or if you want to take a year off and go study something in another state and then come back, and move back into your house. And then now having that single family home, that condominium controlled by statewide rent control, to me, that's just greedy. You're being greedy. The issue in California as it relates to housing is not the landlords and increasing the rent. The issue as it relates to housing in California is the way that California is managed. It's incredibly difficult to build here, incredibly expensive to build here. I have a very simple ADU project that should have taken about 4 months in Redwood City that has taken now almost 2 years because it takes months just to get somebody to come out and do an inspection. Constantly changing all sorts of stuff that didn't need to be changed, having arguments with the architects where they're right and they're wrong. And I don't mean to throw Redwood City under a bus because I think that generally they are very well administered and their city planning and zoning and inspections have historically gone great. It's been outsourced recently, and that's kind of changed a little bit of the makeup over there. But the reality is the issue as it relates to cost of housing in California is not a landlord problem. It's a government problem. And attempting to place that problem onto the shoulders of the landlords is unfair, and it's unjust, and it shouldn't happen. They need to build more housing is what it boils down to.
I totally agree with you, 100%. But okay, let's one last question before I let you go. A lot of the people whom I met in Silicon Valley, all the young people, want to get into Airbnb. Quick thoughts on that. What do you think?
I'm going to call it STR, short-term rental market, as opposed to Airbnb. Right. At some point, Airbnb will send me an endorsement, and I'll sponsor them here on my shirt. But until then, it's the STR rental market. I've seen people be very successful in that. You're basically increasing your daily rental value from a long. I mean, if you know this as well as I do,
right?
If I put a home on a 1 year rental contract, that's my lowest daily rental value that I'm going to get, right? If I break it down into months, into weeks, into days, the higher that's going to go. So it's a great model, and it's a great way for young investors to come in and really work hard, sharpen their skills, clean up their chops, build up some money, and then continue to buy more. I love the ADU play, buying properties and then either splitting them up and then adding ADUs. I love that. I think that that's a great play. It's a great value add when you look at the general, if you will, cost per door here. If I just use San Mateo County, you're looking at an average cost per door between, let's just call it $425,000 per rental door. But if I can put an ADU on a property for $150,000, $200,000, okay, I'm going to be making money on that unit. So I do love that play, and I've seen people do very, very well with that. I've also seen some people get hurt, right? So by overextending themselves or getting caught in a down market. I mean, COVID was brutal for a lot of people in that sector, right? Right. So just it's, in my opinion, real estate, the power of real estate is time. Time is your friend. And as Larry Akins is fond of saying, a bad real estate deal is like a bad haircut. Just give it a little bit of time. Time will heal a lot of things. So don't overextend yourself. Go slow. Be methodical. Always keep reserves. That's a big lesson that you have to learn a lot of times the hard way. I've learned it myself. So make sure you have reserves to weather the storms, right?
Got it. Thanks. Wise words. I agree with you 100%. This year I put a couple of my properties onto Airbnb. It was harrowing at first, but the numbers really worked out for me. I've increased my cash flow by almost 2x, so I'm really happy about that. So yay!
Yeah, and unlike most people on the call, I've seen your spreadsheets and I've seen your analysis. It's incredibly well thought out. Amazing detail that you put into your forecasts and your management. Incredibly impressive. So it can be a great return.
That's a startup founder inside of me. So it's hard to I spend most of my life doing startups. So It's hard to get that out of my system. Anyway, last parting words with Home Smiles. Any parting words that you can give us? Any parting gem of knowledge that you can give us?
Yeah, I would say, hey, when it not just for home, I'm gonna give you parting words on property maintenance, right? And that is, there's a lot of hidden home dangers out there, and make sure that you're taking care of them. And the reason I say that is because I've handled lawsuits where young children have been burned, where people have been hurt, where children have fallen. I've seen it on the other side of it. And so just make sure that you're keeping your home safe for you and for your family. If you have any questions about that, go to homesmiles.com. We've got plenty of reading materials. Obviously, we're here to help in order to keep your home safe for you and your family. So, Charlie, it's been an honor to be here. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Jess. Thank you so much for being on the show. I really appreciate your time. There you have it, folks. You've heard from Jess, a former real estate attorney, but also a real estate mogul. And right now, he owns one of the fastest growing franchise companies in all of America. So, yeah, thanks for tuning in. And before you go, please don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Thank you. Thanks for joining.